Good day, everybody. It's Nicholas van Wyk speaking. I'm the CEO of CIBA and also the editor for Accounting Weekly. Today I have with me my guest, Brian Kazungu, author and business developer. I'll explain how I met Brian and engaged with him to be on this podcast today. But before I hand over to Brian, a little bit about Accounting Weekly. Accounting Weekly is the publication of the Chartered Institute for Business Accountants. It's a publication dedicated to accountants in practice and tax practitioners, providing services to the public. We assist with various tools and guidelines to enable the accountant in practice to better service his clients, covering compilation engagements, various tax issues, e-filing issues experienced by tax practitioners and the like. We learn and get ideas from practitioners. They might be struggling with a particular issue that's provided to us. We investigate it with our experts, and then we present solutions to the broader accounting practitioner market in South Africa and Namibia. I'm also the CEO of the Chartered Institute of Business Accountants. I've started my stint back in 2013. CIBA itself started in 1987. The 80s was a very interesting period within the accounting profession, with most of the professional bodies that we see today starting in one way or another in the 1980s, and I think it had to do with the Closed Corporation Act, which for many years was the first alternative to company law. And that's what we see each time there's a new piece of legislation, whether it's the Tax Administration Act or some change, then it creates opportunities for professionals and professional bodies. And hence, CIBA is a professional body with designations covering from bookkeepers to financial administrators, general accountants, financial managers and chief financial officers, and then obviously also accountants in practice and tax practitioners. So it's quite a wide array of things that we cover at CIBA. You're welcome to go to our website. It's myciba.org, and then read a little bit more about us. Now, how did I then come to meet Brian? I wrote a blog, not a blog, a LinkedIn post. I'm just going to read it to the audience. It is something that I have been noticing, but as I read through my post, you'll see how I then connected with Brian. So here's what I wrote. At many meetings I've been to, speakers promote investing in green funds as if it's the best thing ever, saying it will definitely deliver a better return on investment. But this got me thinking, how often do people make rules or decisions based on a good story or a gut feeling, even when the facts don't really support it? It's like when someone tells you something that sounds right, so you believe it, but it might not actually be true for everyone or every situation. It's important to check if there's a real proof before believing that something will work out just because it sounds like it should. And then I made the statement, don't drive ESG based on the argument of higher returns. It's rather why we need an alternative economic model. And then I linked to an article that some academic published on LinkedIn, answering the question which we often hear, that companies that adopt green or go green and adopt green technologies perform better, when in fact the research shows differently. It's not always, and I'm not advocating for bad governance, I'm just stating a scientific fact. It's not always companies that are well governed that make better returns. I think from my environment, working within the accounting profession, and accountants work with IFRS and IFRS for SME, and then anecdotally you would hear people say, especially from the standard setters, that if companies follow IFRS, then they'll have higher returns, or if companies follow IFRS, then the country would get better foreign direct investments. But if you do actually the research, you see the opposite is true. It's not always the case that following a governance standard or a IFRS standard means that your country will increase its GDP, because there's a lot of other factors involved that you need to consider. So it's a complex scenario, complex situation. And then Brian responded by saying he broadly agreed with the concept or the idea I'm sharing, And then he wrote, there is a great need for the development and adoption of decision tools that helps in such scenarios. For example, in the article below, I highlight the importance of what I call the smart decision toolkit, which helps under these circumstances. And he linked, and I'm happy that he shared with it. It's actually a publication in medium.com. And the article was entitled, If You Are a Smart Thinker, Let's Build the Doctor Congruence Platform Together. And that is, how do you make decisions in a complex scenario and making sure you consider everything and then make the most efficient decision. And that is then what led to our conversation, Brian, and thank you very much for joining me. Let's start off by giving a brief background about yourself, your career development maybe, what you studied and what you're currently doing, and then we'll move on to the second phase, this article of yours about decision making. Brian.
Okay. Thank you very much, Nicholas. And yeah, I remember very well we had that conversation on when I commented on the post that you have actually been participating on LinkedIn. And yeah, but basically, Brian Kazungu, that's my name, and I'm a media person. I'm a business developer at BNM Elite. It's an accounting firm. So prior to our conversation on LinkedIn, I'm sure we had an encounter at the budget speech update that was done recently at that was in Pretoria, I believe. Yeah, but basically, I'm a media person. I'm a business developer, and